The place these debates have in the election process is a critical, final place. Everything in the campaign, the conventions, everything has come before.
These will be the three biggest audiences at these debates that these two men will have between now and the time people go to the polls.
The importance of the debates grows with every election. These are the last vehicles that actually have the ability to change people's minds.
The debates bring everybody together, everybody who's already decided, the few folks who have not decided, to see the candidates in the same place at the same time in a comparative environment.
We have two parties. There's a reason we have two parties. They really disagree about what the size and shape and role of the government ought to be. And I think the debates are going to be very useful to bring that out. And I think they will eliminate any sense that we don't understand what the choice is here.
I think that they look at it as a place not to make major errors. I think that's number one on their list. Do not mess this up. But if you are behind going into it, you want to shine. So you have in your head perhaps something that will make you stand out. Now maybe it's a zinger you're going to throw at your opponent that you think might make a difference. Or maybe it might be, this is not what I'm for. Here are three things. And then there would be information within it that would be new.
People generally base their vote for president, when it comes right down to it, on the person that they feel most comfortable with in times of a crisis. And that's why I think the way the candidates come off, even more than sometimes what they say, is the most important thing.
In between, the candidates will answer or comment upon answers to questions put by a panel of correspondents.
The Kennedy-Nixon debate, the first debate of 1960, is the first real time in the history of television in which you have a massed audience simultaneously sitting largely in living rooms, watching two candidates exchange answers on a focused topic with journalists acting as the intermediary.
What I think Kennedy and Nixon discovered, to their amazement to some extent, was that it didn't matter just what you said, it mattered how you said it and how you looked saying it.
And Richard Nixon had a 5 o'clock shadow, a very heavy one. And Jack Kennedy looked handsome and was really good in front of the cameras.
People who heard it on the radio, many of them thought that Nixon won.
But people who watched on television thought that Kennedy won the debate, and that's because of the appearance of Richard Nixon. He was sweating across his lip, and he looked nervous and unsure of himself on television.
It goes back to seeing a complete picture of the person and your sense of that person, his composure.
So it wasn't just the debate in 1960, it was the introduction of television as a force unto itself in presidential politics. And it became a fact that you were selling a product on TV, the product happened to be a candidate.
The Ford-Carter debates are among the more interesting in the history of the presidency. Ford's behind in the polls. He challenges Carter to debates.
Generally, whoever is behind wants debates, and who's ever ahead doesn't want them, because everybody sees that there's an opportunity to shine or an opportunity to really mess it up.
There is no Soviet domination of Eastern Europe, and there never will be under a Ford administration.
Gerald Ford said the Soviet Union does not dominate Eastern Europe. Some people would argue that that cost Gerald Ford the election.
I don't think that was a gaffe. What Ford said is actually what the policy of the United States was. He didn't say it well. The administration, as well as those past, asserted that those were free peoples. They had the rights to independence.
I'm not sure to the average viewer who doesn't think a lot about foreign policy, that was a big deal. I think when the attention that was lavished on it became obvious to all, then it became seen as a blunder that probably most people didn't think of it as. You know, you think about the 1980 debate between Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan, after which Jimmy Carter's numbers kind of collapsed.
Governor Reagan, again, typically is against such a proposal.
Governor, there you go again.
There is some evidence that some people who came in thinking, well, I'll vote for Jimmy Carter even though I don't like him very much, saw Ronald Reagan and said, I could live with that guy. And they turned around and changed their vote.
I think when you make that decision, it might be well if you would ask yourself, are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
And it's all in the eyes of the beholders, the voters. And whether they, I don't like him. Oh, he's terrific. Hey. And if you're kind of undecided, that's helpful.
Maybe that Carter-Reagan debate changed the course of the campaign and helped determine the outcome. It was partly because there was only one debate, and it was very late, and it was one moment, a fleeting moment, really.
I remember Michael Dukakis, and I don't think this was a genuine moment. I think this was a debate moment.
Governor, if Kitty Dukakis were raped and murdered, would you favor an irrevocable death penalty for the killer?
No, I don't, Bernard, and I think you know that I've opposed the death penalty during all of my life.
And that's all anybody could talk about the next day. Would he be for the death penalty for the person who may have raped his wife?
What would anyone say if you'd want to kill the guy? I think that really did hurt him.
And Michael Dukakis delivered a kind of bloodless answer. People came away, perhaps, with what was a pre-existing condition for Dukakis, which was that he was kind of this cold, technocrat.
But appearance is so important. People look at you and they make decisions about whether they like you or not.
We have a question right here.
Yes, how has the national debt personally affected...
After the debate, I did not know that George Bush had, during the debate, looked at his watch 3 or 4 times, looking at the time. And I started hearing from the public, what was he looking at his watch for? Where did he have to go? He's at a presidential debate. They didn't like that at all.
George H.W. Bush looks at his watch because he has no patience for this, and it's like the guy isn't really into this. He's kind of just punching the clock here.
Clinton made the point, an interview with me, he said, look, if Clinton, had looked at his watch, or if Perot had looked at his watch, wouldn't have mattered at all. The only reason it mattered because it fulfilled something that was already in the wind.
The other thing that the public noticed that they relayed to me is that he stayed close to his stool. He and Bill Clinton was wading into the audience. He was going right up to people and looking them right in the eye. President Bush remained back near his stool and very close to it in a little circle around it.
Bill Clinton is the master politician, maybe the best politician of our time, and he has the ability to explain things in a way that people understand. I mean, he can connect, and George Bush didn't have that.
Well, here's what happened in Gore versus George W. Bush in 2000, first debate, Boston. When Bush was talking, you could see Gore listening.
And the vice president doesn't believe in exploration, for example, in Alaska. There's a lot of shut-in gas that we need to be well. This is a major problem.
New subject.
There's differences.
I was the closest person to those two people, to George W. Bush and Al Gore. And when the debate was over, I was walking out of the hall with one of my daughters, and she said, "Hey, Dad, that was really something that Gore did." And I stopped. I said, "What did Gore do?" And she said, "Well, all that sighing and grimacing." Of course, I hadn't seen any of it. My daughter said, in fact, "Dad, that's going to be the story of the debate." And I said, "Oh, give me a break."
Sometimes as the moderator, you're seeing them in person, and you're not seeing what's going over television. When Al Gore did all that sighing, I was watching on television. I saw it, and I thought, what is this all about?
What are you doing? Al Gore, what are you doing? And it's magnified by the television microphones that are right near his lips. It picked it up so clearly, and it was like, oh dear. As I say, those little things can make you forget what he's saying at all. You're like wondering, why is he doing that?
Al Gore sighing. Why does it matter? It doesn't matter to me. How does that predict the presidency? Conduct of the president? I don't care if the president sighs a lot, or sighs a little, or doesn't sigh at all. I care about whether he commands the issues. I want to know about his temperament. I want to know whether or not he seeks out information systematically and how he processes it.
Is it fair that people base their opinions on a candidate on some little thing they said, some gesture they made, how they answered a question? No, that shouldn't be what people determine their vote on. But people do that. They do that.
There are two questions that bother me about debates as a journalist who's covered them and also participated in. One is, people say, is the candidate a good debater? And I've never understood what that means. What does that mean? That you score more points, or that you look better, or you sound better, or that you know more? I don't know what that means. And the second question, which I wish we would all stop asking, is who won the debate? I don't know how to answer that question. Who won the debate is not an answerable question. What impressions were left by this debate is a good question. But who won the debate, I just wish we would stop asking it. Not that we will, but I wish we would stop asking that question.